This is It Was a Thing on TV.
Spoiler number one is Dr. Lee Franz. It stinks.
What is going on? What is going on?
Episode 141, submission number 811. You Don't Know Jack. You Don't Know Jack ran on ABC from June 20th to July 18th of 2001 for a total of 6 episodes. Gentlemen, I know that wasn't the theme to the actual TV show. That was the theme for one of the computer games. But the computer games I've loved. I've been playing it for 25 years at this point. It really is an amazingly hilarious game.
Yeah,
It's a classic.
it is.
I remember playing this when I was in high school, and then when they opened up the web show,
on
on
Berserk.com.
Berserk.com, I would play that every week. And then they got the PlayStation version, so I got the really good PlayStation version, and then I got the not quite as good, but still pretty good, the Ride version on PlayStation.
Oh, is that Mach 2?
Mach 2, yeah.
I have both of those versions on PS1.
Yeah, I have all those games. Actually, I think I have all 6 regular versions of that game for the PC. Plus, then they did like a sports version and a TV version. And then there was Head Rush, if you remember Head Rush.
Oh, I remember Head Rush.
Oh,
Well,
there was a little tabletop version too.
I have.
I got that. Yeah, I got that for Christmas one year from a friend.
I still have the tabletop version. And actually, one of the hobby shops I go into, one of the stores I go to, sells the actual tabletop version, complete with the box.
Nice.
Oh, that's got to have some value.
Not much.
Yeah, well, I said some value. I didn't say how much. But then it seems like You Don't Know Jack sort of, I don't want to say faded away into obscurity in the early to mid 2000s, but we did go a number of years without a version of You Don't Know Jack. And I would say it was probably a good, I'd say 8 years or so, like from 2003 till about 2011.
Well, first they brought it back as like a Flash game.
Yeah, they did bring it, as a Flash game. But I'm talking about an actual, like, tangible CD version or a game version.
Oh, yeah, the THQ version that was released on PC, Xbox 360, PS3, and the Wii.
Yeah, I played the Wii version. It was all right. It was.
And I can vouch it was for the DS too, because I have the DS version of that.
Oh, I have the DS too. But the one good thing is the 360 and PS3, I think, had, like, downloadable question packs.
Yeah, it did, I believe. And then there was another version that came out a little bit later. I think it was the 2015 version. But that was actually, I think, part of the one of the first party, the Jackbox party packs.
Yeah, it's one of the first Jackbox games.
Yeah.
When they switched from Jellyvision to Jackbox.
Yeah. And then within the last, I think, 2 or 3 years, they released a newer version. And actually, actually say newest version. And the newest version actually allows you to play against 7 other people. It's an 8-player game.
Now you can use your mobile device.
Yep. I
So,
love
yeah.
those things.
So yeah, this is a franchise that has a great legacy and probably one of my favorite series of any game. And it's more or less for that reason that I picked this episode. I did like that. I like the TV show, but I think the issue is it was maybe a little too absurd for your normal viewer.
A little bit too absurd.
a little too absurd, especially on the premiere episode, the first episode. And we're going to play, and here's where the open to the show's going to be, because there is a very special guest star in the open of that first episode. One Regis Philbin, because this show, I believe, debuted right after Millionaire.
Yes, it did.
And here's the little exchange that Reg and the host, who we'll get to in a second, he's another very familiar name. Here's their exchange and the open to the first episode. Enjoy.
Good friends at the phone company are connecting me to another free long-distance call.
I'm sorry, that's incorrect. I'm sorry, that's incorrect. I'm sorry, that's incorrect. I'm sorry, that's... Hello?
Hi, it's Regis Philbin.
Regis? Wow, what am I, somebody's lifeline?
No, Paul, I'm just calling to welcome you to the wonderful world of game shows and to pass along a couple of pointers.
Pointers? Hang on, Reg, let me get a pen. Got it, Reg. Point away.
Well, the first thing you should do is smile. Smile a lot. Everybody loves a guy who smiles.
Wow, smile. Next thing you'll be telling me to dress sharp and the clothes make the show.
And dress sharp, Paul. Clothes make the show.
Okay, I will, Reg.
And another thing, the audience loves seeing other guys get rich. The more comfortable your guests are, the more likely they're going to win the big bucks.
Listen, Reg, you seem really busy. Let me let you run.
Did the new guy just hang up on me?
You think this show's gonna make anybody but me a millionaire? Then you don't know Jack!
It's the show where high culture and pop culture collide like George W. in the English language. Here's Troy Stevens.
Thank you and good evening. And to those of you at home, hello. You look different. Have you had some work done?
Did you notice that Regis said the phone company?
Yeah. Not AT&T, which would have been the underwriting sponsor of the Phone a Friend's Lifeline, but the phone company.
Yeah, somebody didn't pay for sponsorship. But actually, and we'll, when we get to the show itself, there are other guests. It was a cavalcade of people. And I'm not going to say guest stars. I only really found one other major guest star, but you had a lot of, let's say, sidebar activity going on.
Well, hold up. Are you going to talk about we're going to referring to the cameo in episode 2?
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay. Because I have a lot to say about this.
Okay. So the game itself, in case you've never played You Don't Know Jack, first and foremost, why? Second off, you need to fix it like now or yesterday. But the game itself it's a trivia game. It's a question and answer game, mostly multiple choice, but with some twists, some wordplay types of twists, and sometimes some racy twists, some naughty twists. And that carried over to this game. And that's why I said I think this game was a little too goofy, a little too out there for a crowd which just saw Millionaire with Regis, straight-laced. You don't have any sort of wackiness generally going on, or absurdity, let's say. Not necessarily wackiness, because Rage can be wacky, but absurd humor. So I think for that reason, maybe it just didn't get the viewers for that reason. Maybe.
Well, you know, another thing about that, you know who one of the head writers was on that show? Joel Hodgson.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. And of course you would know his work on Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's very interesting, Chico. Thank you very much. So the game itself It was reminiscent in some ways of the computer game, in terms of the question writing, in terms of some of the comedy, in terms of some of the actual games they played, or categories, if you will. So the game was played with 3 players, and the game actually was sort of broken into 3 different rounds, with a commercial break in between each of the rounds. So in round 1, usually questions were worth $1,000, and they were generally multiple choice. There are some exclusions to this rule, but for the most part, they were a 4-answer multiple choice type of question. And there was always some sort of twist to the questions, in terms of some sort of joke or a common thread or something in that regard. And they played a couple of questions, pretty straightforward, albeit with goofy answers. And again, if you've ever played You Don't Know Jack, it's quite funny at times. But then, to end the first part of the show, the first segment, they played a staple from the You Don't Know Jack game, Dis or Dat. And what Dis or Dat basically did was, you had 2 choices, and there would be a statement read, and then you had to decide whether it's Dis or Dat. Or possibly it could refer to both of them, so you'd actually choose both. So actually, in the first episode, the Dis or Dat was Barney or Satan, or both. And one of the answer choices was actually both, because both had a tail. That was actually the question, which one has a tail? Both do. Even though, Satan and Barney, we know how much people hate Barney. And that's something you'll find in every game of You Don't Know Jack. There's always a Dis or Dat round in some capacity. And even, like I said, in the 8-person You Don't Know Jack, 8 people play along at the same time. So that can really change your scores, for the better or for worse. The answers in the Dis or Dat round were worth $1,000 apiece. There was no opportunity for other people to steal on a rebound. And also, if you gave a wrong answer, you lost $1,000. So again, just like the computer game, if you're right, plus 1,000. If you're wrong, minus 1,000. And then we get to round 2. Round 2 is more or less the same as round 1, but again, there's a little bit of absurdity involved. First off, the dollar values in round 2 are doubled, so they're generally worth $2,000. But then, and this may be my favorite part of the TV show, you have, and I feel like I need an echo effect for this, the $2 million dollar question. There's a $2 million question. This is my favorite part of the show. I'm not going to lie. Even though it's predictable, even though you know what's going to end up happening. The $2 million question, it started at $2 million, but the value decreased very quickly. We're talking generally $100,000 per second for starters, and then at a slower rate beyond that, because obviously you don't want to make this a $0 question. And what would happen is, purposely, Troy Stevens, we didn't even mention Troy Stevens, the host, who is played by the one, the only, Paul Reubens. Pee Wee Herman.
That Paul Reubens?
Yes, that Paul Reubens. And he had a look, he almost looked like somebody that was a cast-off from the world of Austin Powers. He had the very long hair, and he sort of played I don't even want to say a swinger type, but he sort of was a swinger type, kind of, sort of, a lot of double entendres and breaking the fourth wall, flirting with the audience and stuff like that. So Troy Stevens would have a question, but invariably something would distract him. It could have been a gust of air blowing the card out of his hand, and he can't pick up the card because it's flying around the studio. Or he might be fighting with ninjas, because just somehow ninjas appeared right when the question was being read, and he had to fight them off. The end result was always, the question would be worth no more than a couple of $100. It might be $200, $300, but the dollar values went so low, they even got as low as into the teens. And I think there was even one time it got into single digits. So all these theatrics, all this goofiness on the $2 million question, Eshton, and it ended up being worth, I don't want to say pocket change, but pocket change, because you're not playing for $2 million, you're playing for $17. And then what happens is that takes us to round 3. And believe it or not, now round 3, the values are tripled. So it's worth $3,000 for each question. And then also in this round, there was a question titled in the category, Things That Sound Dirty But Aren't. So there's your sexual double entendres there. And then the final question of the round was worth $5,000. And it was sort of reminiscent of a little something from Remote Control. Everybody remembers Remote Control.
I love Remote Control.
There was a little event called Beat the Bishop. No, that's not a euphemism, at least.
Oh, boy.
Well, that's what beating the bishop was. Okay, I'm sorry if at age 41 I just described a euphemism for you.
I know what it means. That's the thing.
Okay, all right. Wasn't sure about that. But Beat the Bishop was doing a math problem, but you were given them in different ways. They might say, instead of like 8 plus 3, they might say, how many family members are there in the Brady Bunch, plus how many daughters are there in the Brady Bunch? So that would be your 8 plus 3. That's what this was. This was a 4-level question. And if you got it right, you got $5,000. If not, you're probably out of the game at that point. One thing I'm going to complain about, and I'm putting my math teacher hat on, and actually let me do it right now. I'm going to put on my teacher hat. I'm wearing a hat from my school, so that's my teacher hat for this.
This is your teacher hat.
You can see what it says. It says my school's name on it.
Yep.
One thing that I noticed while watching this is apparently order of operations gets thrown out the window.
Yeah. Because I have an example here. The unit number on MASH added to the number of digits on a U.S. Social Security number minus the number of Beatles on the cover of the White Album divided by the number of represented by a roll of snake eyes. Now, if you were to do a proper sort of order of operations, then the answer would be 4,086. 4077 plus 9 minus 0 divided by 2. And 0 divided by 2 would be first because PEMDAS. 0 divided by 2 is 0. So that would just be 4077 plus 9 minus 0. Here you're just sort of answering it all in order.
Yeah, and actually that's the case on the first episode, because the big thing was at the end you had to multiply by 0 the number of Oscars that Weekend at Bernie's won. And the thing is, the order of operations, the way you're supposed to do it is, again, as Chico said, PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. Instead of doing the actual answer, they accepted the answer of 0, which is clearly wrong. Now, I don't think that PEMDAS and order of operations was invented between 2001 and when I got my teaching license in 2006. So, yeah, somebody screwed up there. And I even wonder what would have happened if somebody actually used PEMDAS as they should and got a different answer but were ruled wrong. I don't know. Maybe it just falls in place with the absurdity of the show. Let's ignore all rules of math. But also, when people are doing this math problem, there's always some sort of distraction going on. You might have a crying baby. On the premiere episode, you actually had, I think it was a 5 or 6 piece mariachi band. You had children on violins playing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, just not that well, so it isn't very peaceful. They're probably squeaking a lot. And then the 2 people who have the most money after this question, they go back to another standard from the You Don't Know Jack series. They go to the Jack Attack. And the Jack Attack, it's played the exact same way as the video games. You're given a prompt and you're given a category, and the answers, you're going to see 4, 5, 6 answers fly by, and you have to lock in while that answer's on the screen. And if you do, you got $5,000. And if you got it wrong, you lost $5,000. And they'd play 6 questions, which I believe is the number that they played in the You Don't Know Jack game. I think it was 6, maybe 7 questions. And whoever had the most money won the game. And the other player received a consolation prize, like a gift basket of deodorant. Not kidding. That was the consolation prize on the first episode. And we should also add another key piece from the You Don't Know Jack series was the announcer of the show, who also announced or handled the saying the names of the different possibilities in the Jack Attack, is Cookie Masterson.
Yes.
Who you also might know better as Tom Gottlieb, his real name. And Tom Gottlieb has one of those voices you've definitely heard, because he's been narrating Whacked Out Sports for years now. I mean, it's got to be well over a decade.
Longer than a decade.
I said at least a decade, well over a decade, yes. So, I mean, it might be closer to 15 years now, but he's the voice of Whacked Out Sports if you get reruns of that from, gosh, like I said, 2008, 2009. It's been on reruns here forever. It's classic Sunday afternoon filler or Sunday night filler.
Fun fact, Tom Gottlieb, brother of Jellyvision founder Harry Gottlieb, who voiced the original host of You Don't Know Jack, Nate Shapiro.
In the first game.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that takes me back. I didn't even know there was an era where Cookie Masterson didn't exist.
Well, no, Cookie in the first game was the producer in the first game, if I remember correctly.
It's been a long time since I played the first version.
Yeah, because in the lore, he started out as the producer in the first 2 games, and then I think it wasn't until, like, You Don't Know Jack movies where he transitioned to the host. And then he was the host, I think, in Volume 3.
And then also, you did have kind of goofy activities happening before and after the show. You actually had, well, not actually, but there was a murder at the start of the second episode, and they were investigating it. And we mentioned Regis at the beginning of the first episode. And then actually in the first episode, and I still remember this from 20 years ago, somebody on this stage is going to walk off with this car. And they show a nice brand new car. And the joke behind it, who's driving off with the new car? Troy Stevens is driving off. You see him peel out of the parking lot at the end of the show, sort of maniacally laughing. Ha, ha, ha. I didn't say any of the contestants were going to win the car. I said somebody on the stage is going to drive off in this car.
No, he looked at the camera and said, I told you someone on this stage was going to drive off in this brand new car.
Yes. Classic. Again, absurdist humor. Classic in my mind. But again, it's just a little too out there for an audience after Millionaire, after this tough quiz where millions of dollars are at stake, especially at this point, because this would have been in the middle of the escalating jackpot era. So you're playing maybe not for $2 million at this point, but you're probably playing for, I would guess, at least $1.5 million or $1.4 million. So you go from this big money, high intensity quiz show, very serious, to, I don't want to say fluff, but let's call it fluff. It was sort of fluff. Well, I won't say terribly fluffy, but it was not Millionaire is basically what I'm trying to get at.
No. I can tell you right now, did Who Wants to Be a Millionaire ever have the host fighting off a horde of ninjas?
I don't think I saw Regis fight off a horde of ninjas.
I'm looking at Troy fight off a horde of ninjas in the $2 million question.
Yes, and I believe that was the third episode where that happened. But also we should add a couple other things. First, one of the production companies behind this, besides Jellyvision, obviously, Carsey-Werner Mandabach.
That Carsey-Werner Mandabach?
Yeah, the one who, among other things, brought us Oh Madeline, but also brought us The Cosby Show. And that just seems weird saying that. From the people who brought us The Cosby Show and numerous other shows, obviously they did Different World and so many shows back in the 80s and 90s. They brought us this? Well, I mean, again, let's remember their first show was Oh Madeline. That didn't do so well. So maybe those were like the bookends. You had Oh Madeline to start. You Don't Know Jack wasn't necessarily at the end, but it was after the good stuff in the middle.
Yeah.
And then also, we did have the occasional cameo. We mentioned that earlier. We mentioned Reach, obviously, on the first episode. But on the second episode,
oh yes,
Troy Stevens starts off the game with "Let the Games Begin," and who comes from behind one of the walls, one of the backdrops? Carl Lewis with an Olympic-style torch to light a scented candle.
Yeah,
a scented candle.
A scented candle. Yeah, it was like a purple or blue scented candle, maybe like 4 or 5 inches tall. And he had this big torch, like 3 feet tall or 4 feet tall, 4 feet long. And he just bowed it down and lit the scented candle.
That is absurd. Yes.
Hey, there'll be one more time this year where we're going to talk about Carl Lewis. And you know what it is.
Francis Scott Off-Key, yes.
Don't spoil it.
Yes, that's Carl Lewis, 9-time Olympic medalist. Going on You Don't Know Jack, and all he did, he had a line or two, but he took the torch and lit a scented candle. Was that really worth the money to pay Carl Lewis to do that cameo?
No. Yes.
No, I think he had it right the first time. So, yeah, that really, I mean, it's not a long episode, but that's You Don't Know Jack. It was very, again, I'm going to use the word absurd. I may be using it a little too much, but it was absurd. It was ridiculous. It was funny. It was a little bit of a deviation from the You Don't Know Jack computer game series, or video game series, I should say. But one thing that we could definitely say after almost 20 years, now that makes me feel old, but after 20 years, we could definitely say that You Don't Know Jack, it was a thing on TV.
It was.
Yep.
But
and I'll tell you right now, if people found out about it before it was canceled, maybe it would still be a thing on TV.
I don't know, and I'm gonna just chime in with this. One of the last episode that aired was actually the pilot episode.
yes.
We'll say there were 5 episodes plus the pilot. It still was 6 episodes that aired. And I remember, again, 20 years ago, actually, I think it was over 20 years ago at this point, because I think these episodes recorded, I want to say fall of 2000, fall or winter of 2000.
No, 2001.
Yeah.
Yeah, ABC sat on these episodes for a little while. I'm going to assume probably 9 months. Maybe they were meant to air or expected to air in September to December of 2000, but were burned off in the summer. Well, that might be the reason why we didn't see any more episodes, because they were just burning them off, because gosh knows networks have done that with other shows, and it's bit them in the butt, kind of, sort of. Go back to Tell the Truth last week when they, being ABC, sat on those original episodes for about a year.
Well, remember, Mike, wasn't there supposed to be a writer's strike in 2001?
It's very possible, because remember how many different non-scripted shows they had on at that time? Like Weakest Link. I mean, how many times did they air Weakest Link? It was one of those shows that was shown quite often.
Yeah, but I do remember that they were expecting a writer's strike in 2001, and it never happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very possible, but also, with all due respect, there are bigger things going on in 2001.
Well, that didn't happen until the fall.
Yeah, I did want to add that a friend of ours who isn't with us anymore, he's been deceased for almost 20 years. Randy Amasia actually went to some of the episodes. I know he was at the pilot episode.
Yeah, he had a full sort of write-up on the pilot, and he was not kind.
It was not very praiseworthy, no.
No.
So that's another way that the show bombed. It was, I mean, I don't think it was ever expected to be the next big hit, but based on just, good friends of ours writing on the internet, here's how I felt the show went, and they didn't have much good to say about it. Yeah. And again, I'm going back to the word absurd. That was the show in a nutshell. It was absurd humor. It wasn't straightforward. I mean, there were some sight gags and whatnot, but there are a lot of times where Troy Stevens broke the fourth wall to give a little wink or, some sort of little double entendre or something like that. It just doesn't play for a millionaire audience.
I was not a fan of this version of the show at all. And my thinking is the game is basically the game plays out in your head when you're playing it on the computer. You don't see everything that's going on. You're imagining what's going on. So when you actually see it on the show, it's like it doesn't translate well.
It's like, this is, you don't know, Jack, by and large, is an exercise of the theater of the mind. But when you put it on the TV show, you pop that bubble. I'm watching episode 4 right now on YouTube. There is a giant light that shines on the $2 million question and sets it on fire. Does that ever happen?
Well,
No.
Thank heavens that didn't happen on the episode with Carl Lewis and the Torch. Now, you make a good point. That is, you do have to, there's a theater of the mind involved in all of this. And again, it got lost in translation. It sounds good in theory, but how many times have we said something sounds good in theory, but ... Yeah.
Well, also, here's the thing. You have too many people involved in this show. You obviously have the Jelly Division people, obviously, but you also have Carsey-Werner. You also have Joel Hodgson, as we mentioned. Did we mention Robert Morton was involved in this?
Robert Morton from The Late Show?
Yes.
Oh, you know who else was involved in this? Andrew Golder.
Who's Andrew Golder?
Who helped create both Debt and Win Ben Stein's Money.
Yeah, he's the guy behind Win Ben Stein's Money, yes. So he's definitely a known fixture.
So we have like all the hands on this show.
This is its case, and this is probably a reason why I did not care for this version. It's a case of too many cooks.
No, that's later this year.
It takes a lot to make a stew.
A pinch of salt and laughter too.
A scoop of kids to add the spice.
A dash of love to make it nice. And you've got
too many cooks.
too many cooks.
Too many cooks. Too many cooks.
Too many cooks.
Too many cooks. Too many cooks.
So yeah, just all these hands.
And that's not even including the people on the stage, because as we mentioned, there were ninjas. There were 3 ninjas. There was a mariachi band.
Wait, did you say 3 ninjas? Where was Rocky
no.
Colton Tum Tub?
Why do I open the door for Greg? No. Okay, I apologize. There were ninjas, and there just happened to be one more than 2 of them on stage. And then you had the mariachi band, which consisted of at least 5 people. So, I mean, literally you had too many people or too many cooks behind the scenes, and possibly too many in front of the scenes too.
It's a good thing you said 5 mariachi people, because I was going to make a 3 amigos joke.
I'm going to take off my leg. I'm dead serious. I'm going to take off my leg. I'm going to swing it around, sort of like how Tim Conway's ass in that chair on that episode of Ace Crawford, how he knocked over everything in Billy Barty's house. I'm going to just go totally crazy, swinging my leg around the house.
Oh,
good.
Boy.
Damn it. Okay. I'm I'm pulling up my
Oh, no.
Gonna throw a shankler around. Anywho, so yeah, there were just too many people involved. It was too outside the box, if you will. Maybe too much of a deviation from what the computer game was. And again, yeah, you're trying to get the younger demographic, which maybe you did get the younger demographic a little bit. But the older demographic who's never heard of You Don't Know Jack probably doesn't have an idea what's going on. I mean, I know my parents played You Don't Know Jack 25 years ago or so. That would have put them at my age, mid-40s at the time. But I mean, how many people in their 60s or 50s played You Don't Know Jack? Probably not a whole heck of a lot.
So watching episode 5 on YouTube now, we have a question that is asked entirely in Japanese with the choices given in English. And that's before the $2 million question. That's how absurdist this show is.
Oh yeah, they had some very unconventional questions. There was an opera singer that came out and did a note, and they had to determine what note did she sing, A, B, C, or D. Did she sing an A, a B, a C, or a D? And everybody whiffed on that question. It was an A she sang. It was a very high A. I knew it wasn't C because I don't know what C sounds like. I played band for a number of years in high school, so...
Yeah.
But also, I mean, at that point, it sort of becomes a guessing game, and it's not a good look when, all 3 people are wrong. Yeah, no, it wasn't a D, no, it wasn't a B, no, it wasn't a C, it was an A. So now, it gets to be very luck-based, especially when, like you said, a question's read in Japanese, and then you're given 4 choices in English. Unless you're a Japanese speaker, this is a guessing game, and sort of a high stakes guessing game at that, especially if it's in one of the later rounds. Now that I'm looking at it, now that we've mentioned some of these random events, now the show's sort of souring on me.
I told you it was.
I mean, I still loved Troy Stevens, the character. I'm sorry.
Paul Reubens was fine.
Oh yeah,
you'll never get me to say a bad word about Paul Reubens between Troy Stevens, between Pee-wee's Playhouse, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I mean, he is part of my childhood. But yeah, this is just too outside the box, I think. And when the game becomes, is it 1, 2, 3, or 4, and you're just guessing based on sheer luck, nothing to guide you in a certain direction necessarily, especially if you don't speak another language or you're tone deaf or what have you, that doesn't make a good game.
No. Like we said, computer game works because it's theater of the mind. When you actually see it in a real setting with real money, it doesn't work.
Nope.
I'll say the Jack Attack worked, but as a show...
Well, the Jack Attack is hard to mess up.
Well, that's very true. But as a whole, yeah, just in retrospect, this show, it's not that good. And again, it hurts me to say that because I love the franchise. And as I said also, if you're interested in playing You Don't Know Jack on one of the newer consoles, Jackbox Party Pack 1 has the version of You Don't Know Jack. And then there's a new one released, I believe, for Jackbox Party Pack 5. And they're on sale all the time because I see all sorts of stuff on Facebook about Steam sales and sales in the PlayStation Store.
Yeah, and also the original versions on PC are for sale at $2.99 each on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, you can get, I think, all the games. I want to say all the games, including like Head Rush and you mentioned the Ride and all that.
Yeah.
I don't think, I think it's $20 for all the games. It's not all that much.
Yeah, the only games that are not included in that pack are You Don't Know Jack 5th Adventure, because I think that used an online feature in the game.
Yes, it did, yes.
And also, there were 2 versions, I remember, of the Net Show that were released on PC for offline and Louder, Faster, Funny, which was like a best of the Berserk game. Those 2 versions aren't on Steam.
Aww.
But you can get them on PC CD-ROM, provided you have like an older Windows computer that can run them, or a Mac, an older Mac somewhere.
Okay.
Well, I know we said this was a thing on TV like 10 or 15 minutes ago. Let's actually put a little bow on it. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about You Don't Know Jack.
If you want to watch the shows, they're all on YouTube.
Yeah, if you know where to look.
Yeah, they're not that hard to find. With that, next week, it's nobody's birthday next week. Well, actually, it's not somebody's birthday, but the topic of our first show is related to somebody's day, which is in early March.
Oh.
Oh, yes.
It's a somebody.
It is a somebody. It is a known somebody.
It's a somebody.
It's a somebody.
Hey, paisanos.
Oh, why don't you just give him the answer, Greg?
That was the one hint I was hoping Greg wouldn't say. But then after we talk about that day, boy, I wonder who we're talking about.
Hey, let me consult my captain. I have to call my friend Lou.
Jeez. This is why we don't let Greg out of the house on weekends. Okay. And then the second episode, it was a continuation of a very successful show. I would call it a spin-off.
A sequel, even?
Well, I'd say technically it's a spin-off, but really it sort of keeps with the canon of the original show. So I would say think kind of sort of like Sanford Arms and Sanford, kind of sort of how that related to Sanford and Son.
Except most of the cast is actually in this.
Yeah, but some of the new people in this show, huge names.
Yes.
Oh, but yes.
Some people were famous at the time. Some people would go on to be famous later.
Exactly, yes.
One person in particular, but we're not going to say who just yet.
Yeah.
No, that should be an ample enough clue for the next week's
Let's
episode.
just say they call him a war machine.
Mike won't get it, but I'd get it.
Greg gets it. Anywho, remember, like, comment, and subscribe. Visit our website for all the previous episodes. And if you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to hit the bell.
Ding.
For future updates. And of course, big shout outs to our friends at PlayStation Nation. This week, we are dropping a couple of good ones, actually. What are we dropping this week?
Well, we had The Powers of Matthew Starr, and then we had To Tell the Truth 80. I gotta say, To Tell the Truth 80 was a lot of fun.
It really was.
It was one of the better shows as of late. I agree.
And one thing I forgot that I added in post was we mentioned that Jean Marsh was on the second week of To Tell the Truth 80.
Dame Jean Marsh, yes.
You do know that she was Sarah Kingdom in the Doctor Who serial, The Daleks' Master Plan, right?
I was today years old when I learned that.
Why how'd you not know that? That's pretty common that she was Sarah Kingdom.
Must have forgotten. I don't know. Imagine what else I'll learn from listening to this show.
And also, in addition to liking, subscribing, rating, reviewing us, don't forget the socials.
Yeah. All the socials.
Yeah, especially the Twitter. We're very active on Twitter. Not to say that we're not active on Facebook and also on Instagram, but add us on the socials. You'll see what episode the newest episode is literally like hours after it's released.
And also, if you have any feedback regarding something, or if you want to suggest a show or something, you could email us at itwasathingontv@gmail.com.
Really? We actually do have another email address. I didn't know that we have a Gmail address.
Yeah, well, I got that as the result of the YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. That's how they got the YouTube channel.
Got it. So that's it for this week. Thank you for my birthday gift for letting me talk about a show that I now have regrets about.
It aged well. No, it didn't.
It aged. It did age, but also, again, I'm now looking at it from a different pair of glasses, and yeah, they tried, but this was never going to be a show that lasted any considerable length of time. It was going to burn out at some point.
No, yeah.
And it just happened to burn out after a month.
Yeah.
Yep.
Until next week, thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.
Wow! That's the game! Blair, when I think of you, I think of superlatives like great, amazing, fabulous, trivia geek with no social life, stuff like that. But don't thank me, because the real truth is, you don't know Jack.